Hey friends, this is Marilyn, and today the Etteilla arrived. Now, I've been with a baby for the past 10 hours, so I look like a hot mess. And the light is not optimal. I have overhead light, and it's getting dark outside. But how do I not showcase this deck the second I get it? It arrived, well, let's see, Marco let me know that he mailed it on Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days to arrive from Rome to New Jersey. So when you order something from Marco, you can expect to get it quickly. And I took the liberty of cutting open the edge. Everything comes very nicely packed with Marco. Very nicely packed. Nothing's ever damaged. I've never had anything damaged with Marco. And as usual, we have beautiful wrapping paper, which just becomes part of my wall art. One of his many decks. And here it is. What an elegant box. Now, I can't speak French, and we'll do Google Translate, but it's a collection of the cards in the doctrine of, this is really rough, like just recognizing words, but like that served the theories of practical magic, maybe. And with the idea that its progeny, or that its ancestry was from ancient Greece. And then we have beautiful, elegant writing on the side. And then on the other side. And the top, we have some type of motif. And there. I do want to apologize if you hear the television. My husband's watching TV, and I think he's going deaf. He listens to it rather loudly. So I got him to negotiate. I negotiated with him. He promises he'll mute it during the commercials. Okay, it's like a telescopic but vertical box, right? Very nicely done, Marco's signature. And then again, Etteilla, the Life of Thoth, with French words, perhaps saying who originally printed it in Paris in 1788. But reconstructed by Marco Benedetti in Rome of 2024. Now, I had asked Marco a few words to tell me a few things about the deck, because I've showcased my other Etteilla decks. I have at least 2 other copies. I have a Grimaud from the 1960s, and I have one that I got as a incentive, for Lo Scarabeo Kickstarter kind of thing. I was originally buying Visconti deck, and as a incentive, they included a Etteilla deck. So then I ended up with 2 Etteilla decks. And I had always assumed that the Etteilla deck, that this is based on, the other 2 that I have, were based on a deck similar to what Etteilla may have had, or created after his death and just created by his followers, who created a deck in his name. But Marco said no, that he's aware of, there are 3 extant decks, or there were 3 extant decks that he was made aware of, that he used as references. And this one was dated 1788. And he died in 1791, and they had his name and his place of business, so it would have been sanctioned by Etteilla. So these would have been what Etteilla had. And Marco told me that he used the black and white. There were 3 sheets. One was black and white, and so he used that to get the images. And then there were 2 that were in color, and he chose the better of the 2 ones that were in color to use as reference for his coloration. And the original colors were brush colored. They weren't stenciled. And so I guess he followed suit. So there we have it. Let me flip the camera and I'll show these cards one by one. Okay, now I want to, oh wow, I want to point out, so we have a little insert, which is written in French, but since I don't speak French, what I'll have to do is Google Translate for my own satisfaction, my own edification. And for those of you who don't speak French, I imagine you could do the same thing. And if you do speak French, you'll be very happy to have it. Now, okay, I can tell right away that the front of the card has a texture. It's like a textured front, but the back is very smooth. Very smooth. And I'm not sure if the color translates because I have artificial light in here because, as I mentioned, it's getting dark outside. But in person, this background sort of seems like a very pale pink beige with blue on top. It's lovely. It looks on the camera as I'm looking at it, it looks like it's yellow with blue, but it's really like a pink beige with blue. It's gorgeous. Okay. So the Fool does appear to have the designation of 0 on it. Now, I'm not real familiar with the Etteilla deck, even though I have two copies of the deck. But I don't really ever use it. I've used it for myself for meditation, but I've never read for a person using this deck because I'm not comfortable. I don't understand. I don't feel as though I would do it justice, and so I have it more as a historic piece of interest for myself. And sometimes I'm not even sure I know what some of the cards are. I'm not even sure I can identify all of them, to be honest. But you can see it's like a watercolorly oh, so it's just lovely. Beautiful. And what I will do after I show you this one is I will do, probably tomorrow, I'll do a side-by-side comparison with the two other decks I have. Or maybe I'll compare this one, to each of the others one at a time, because otherwise the video will be very long. So the number 1 card he designates with his name, and in the reversal, he calls it the questionnaire, I guess, or maybe that is kind of like the Seeker's card. But it's interesting that particular card doesn't go upside down. But if that's the way it is in the original, that's the way it got printed. So I don't know if this is Etteilla's hand. You know how Pamela Coleman Smith, wrote her letters by hand? Is it possible that these are hand done by Etteilla? What a beautiful hand, if so. And then we see that there are astrological signs, I guess astrological signs. So could this be the Sun card? I like I said, I'm not entirely sure. I know each one of these cards in relation to a regular tarot deck. It does have 78 cards because we had the Fool, which was numbered 0, and it ends with 77. So that would make 78 cards. And of course, I think every time I've ever looked at the Etteilla decks, and anytime you've ever looked at this particular deck, whichever copy you have seen, the numbers, it's not in the same sequence. So I think who is water, right? And propose, I'm not sure. And we see notations, the number 3 card. We have a Gemini sign. Is that a Gemini sign? I'm not sure. But then that looks like, is that the crustacean? And then 2 dogs. And then the moon and the 2 towers. And here we have the reference to the Aquarius, and then but then that's Cancer. Isn't that interesting? And this looks like the star card, so I'm confused. See, that's why I never use the Etteilla deck, because it confuses me. It looks like the Aquarius card, but then it's got Cancer designated on it. The World card, I believe that means Earth, and then this means trip or voyage. And then we have the 4, religious references. Day and night. Now this, in reverse, the word is proper. And you'll see how it must have been very clever in its day. When you turn it upside down, you have the night sky, and up this way, it's day. So the thing that I will say, without looking at the other ones right now, the other copies that I have, is that this one, is printed using the original extant deck, whereas the other ones appear to have been, they referenced the extant decks, but someone went in there and reworked. And then of course, the words on those decks aren't necessarily the original words. They may have been put them in the original words, but then also in English. So then this one is also Etteilla, but for the female aquarant, I guess. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the numbers are not corresponding to the numbers we're accustomed to. But you can see what I mean about how, like, subsequent decks, sorry, I have Play-Doh on my fingers from doing Play-Doh with my other granddaughter yesterday. I couldn't get them all out. I'm sorry about that. But, it's more, this is the way it looked originally, whereas the other decks that we have are, somebody made an effort to refine the faces. So I rather appreciate that this is more of a facsimile. His name is on, wow, look at that. His name is on the waistband here. You see that? Of Temperance. And again, you can see the facial, the faces are just the way they were on his cards, not fine-tuned as they are in more modern publications. So this is Prudence, which I don't know if there's a hanged man in this deck. I don't recall, but Prudence may have been the card designated, the one that we associate with the hanged man. Because I think they felt like the rope was really a snake, something like that. I wrote an article about it on my blog. If I can find it, I'll link it below. But I do have a blog and a website, and nobody ever sees it because nobody knows about it, but it's at, HTTPS. It's a secure site, www.tarotclarity.com. And I just go to my blog, and I have a lot of articles. I stopped, and this one's a lover card. I stopped writing for it, because I just turned to the videos because they were just easier to do. And, but I do have several articles over there that you may be interested to read. Now, let's see, what card was this? Oh, this is like the devil card. They call it like force majeure, but I guess it is the devil card. It looks like the devil card. And the Magician is number 15. Isn't that interesting? So I guess Etteilla's take was to, reference the tarot decks that came before and correct the corruptions that he believed that he and other occultists believe, had occurred over the years. Their whole agenda was that it was, the Book of Thoth from Egypt, right? And that, they were pages, not like cards, but pages in a book. Boy, look how beautiful that dove card is. Isn't that lovely? I'm going to have to remember this when Masha does her death. I'm going to have to pull this one, this particular one. It's interesting, though, that the Hermit would be the traitor. Unless that doesn't mean that, but that's what it looks like. And so, these occultists, they went on the assumption either that they completely ignored that the origins of these cards were from Italy. They completely ignored it, or they were not aware of it. And so they didn't know what the significance was. And so, like all of us, when we want to make sense of something, they made up stories. And they came up with like a compelling story that, these cards came from Alexandria, and, after the library in Alexandria was destroyed, this secret book was like the secret of the world or whatever. And that, the images were hidden in plain view in a deck of cards, but that the TDM that they were aware of, because of course this was from France, right? So the TDM, which was the deck that they were aware of, which I guess they assumed was the original, the origin deck, that it was corrupt, and so I think their attempt was to restore it to the original intent from, being a book from ancient Egypt. So I find it hard to believe that they were unaware of the Italian decks, or that the Italians developed the game and invented the cards. But, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? And then that must be the end of, oh no. My bad. I didn't even notice when we got out of the Triumph cards right here. Okay. So the Chariot was the last of the Triumph cards. Okay. And then we get into whatever Campagna is. I'm not sure if that's a sword or if that's a baton. It looks like a it looks like a stick. So on the sides of some cards, we have elegant writing. So, if I were to ever use these for reading, I'd have to make it my business to reference what these words meant, obviously. And Etteilla is significant because, of course, I'm convinced that little old Italian ladies and little old French ladies had been interpreting these cards for hundreds of years before Etteilla ever got his hands on them. However, at the time he came up, times had changed, and you could do it out of the closet, so to speak. And Well, isn't that lovely? The colors on this are just lovely. He brought card reading out of, secrecy and out of private parlors, and made it a profession. Like, you could actually grow up and be a tarot card reader. It was actually a thing he did, and that's how he made money. And he, waved his flag, and so we owe him for that. I mean, I was reading cards for a long time before I ever made it known publicly in fact, I didn't make it known publicly, like publicly, that I read cards until I did I created my channel in 2016. And I started reading in 1975 or 76. I can never remember which year it was. And I can't remember what year. So it's like 49 or 48 or 49 years this year. And so a lot of us kept it to our vest. I think it's, since the internet popped up, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is a tarot card reader, But back in the day, before the internet, we weren't easy to find. I speak for myself. I mean, there were always somebody on the highway or in a tourist location, like come get your cards read kind of thing, and Madame Fortune on a boardwalk and stuff like that. But, it was something I kept really close to my vest. The only people who knew were people who knew me personally, and then word of mouth. I never advertised or anything like that. So it just seemed to, even in recent years, it's kind of a thing that I and some other people of my generation maybe did what's the word I'm trying to think of? In clandestine, right? Clandestinely. Clandestinely, I'm sorry. I don't know, sometimes my brain doesn't work so good. Love, Two of Cups, look at that. Desire. And again, this is like a buttercream yellow. Just beautiful with the blue. And then when the internet came out, like everybody came out, and I had a website in the early days with the internet, like in the late 90s, I guess the internet came out. I had a website that was very simple. And I had a Yahoo page. Do you remember Yahoo pages? Where you had you could create Yahoo forums. Some of you older people will remember that. And here I'm not really looking at the words very well. I should be showing you. But these are the original words. And as they appear, criticism, some type of incident, but I can't assume that that's the real translation. Hope, maybe? But it's obvious then that, Etteilla intended the cards to be read in reverse and upright, different meanings for each position. It looks like amity. What is that, like peace or friendship or cooperate? I don't know what that means. Amity, friendship. Fake, false. I can tell you right now, I want to shuffle it, but then I don't want to get it all out of order because then I'll have to get them in order tomorrow with the other decks. But I can tell you right now that it probably shuffles like a dream. And what the heck? That's how much I love you. I'll shuffle them. The lottery. Look at that. The home. or maybe lottery means chance. These little orbits are very interesting here. And again, another card with writing. And I'm willing to bet that that's Etteilla's hand right there. Like his real hand, right? The difference in the colors of these discs. This one was blue, I think. There's blue and pink and pale yellow. Blue and pink and pale yellow. Wow. Okay, I'm going to do a shuffle with these cards just to show you what it's like. And if that doesn't prove to you that I love you, nothing does, because I have to put these cards back in order. So I'll be spending some time. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, I can tell. Nice. Very nice. Very, very nice. The smooth backs and the textured surfaces work nicely together. Oh, I messed that one up. So there you have it. Very beautiful. Very nicely done, Marco. Very nicely done. Kudos. And you know, Marco is becoming, I think, my favorite deck creator. I have more decks by Marco Benedetti than I have by any other publisher. And I have, decks from the best of them. And he's the one he's the one I have the most of. So I wholeheartedly endorse Marco's decks, and dealing with Marco and, communicating with Marco is a pleasure and always so easy, and just wonderful. Just wonderful. Well, okay, now tomorrow, let me flip the camera for a second.